Okay, here's one for you. I was recently on another man's channel, and he's someone that debunks the afrocentrics. This is known as Chief X. I'd like for you to look him up eventually here off of this, but he was somebody who was caught up in this afrocentric games and the We Was games, and We Was Egyptians, and even got Egyptian tattoos back in the day, and then found out that all that was BS. And so he's taken it upon himself to re-educate the people that are trying to spread the lies, because it's not causing any type of help towards the black community whatsoever. In fact, he sees the help to come from finally making, I guess, amends to the ideas of where they actually come from, and stop making these jealous lies, because it disrespects every person that they try to claim, and themselves at that same time. It's kind of done out of jealousy, and from a third person's point of view, you can see it real easily, but they can't seem to quit. But Chief X has taken it upon himself to be one of the forefronts, or chief, in this idea of debunking all of the little bitty claims that tries to make it up. Not only does he do that, but he actually puts forward where Africans come from somewhat. He's recently done a few videos where he does mention Asalar Man, which is the first Negroid type ever found at 4400 BC. Now, there are ones that are found before that go back to Iwo Iliru at 9100 BC, but all of those in betweens there, after 4400 BC, are all a low-brained, small-brained hominid creature that still resembles Homo erectus. And so it was hybrided by somebody that actually already came out of Africa that was a totally different race than themselves, for they were still a hominid or a Homo erectus form prior to this 4400 BC event. And that's what gave them a larger brain capacity, which is still some 15% smaller than most of the other humanity, but we don't need to go all there. So whenever I was introduced to this, I was just anonymous and didn't have my picture on. Eventually it showed up later, but I woke up to this after having a shower and laid down on the couch and had my hair poking up and stuff. And it's, again, not about me and not about my appearance or anything about like that whatsoever. You can picture me as being a Caucasian or white man anyhow. You can make up in your mind whatever it is that you think that you're talking to is me, or just use my Neptune iconography and go off of that. Doesn't really matter. But when we started the conversation, I began with this idea that we're not ourselves right now. I want you to step out in a third person's point of view, so you can look at these things as if you aren't part of either one or any of it. We're from the planet Zenthar, like Star Trek, and we showed up, and we're so far advanced, spacemen, which we hope to be one day, that we can just analyze the whole planet, and it can show us all this timelines and things like that just from scanning it. And instantly they can find out who is where or what is where. And I was going to go off into black people and other things, and I talked about how Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, at least dates back now to 325,000 years, which is something that he acted as he was unaware of. I spoke to him about it one time before, but you know me, after I fill you full of this food so quickly, some of it doesn't stick to the wall. That's why I reiterate quite often. But we had talked, him and I, 6, 8, 10 times, and had Chefrin talk with us too before on it, and he was even going to have me on there as a debunker. He put a claim out and said, I offer anybody $100, come on, do it. You know, you always want to talk about it all these times, try it. I've got a guy that here is going to do it, and he's a white guy, watch out. And he's going to debunk you on this stuff, and nobody would take anybody up on it. He was going to be the moderator and therefore be able to just mute somebody when they try to talk over people and stuff. And they don't want that platform at all. They want their platform where they can talk over people and mush you into the ground and say a few things, and next thing start going, oh, about something, and deflect and all kinds of things. But it didn't go that way at first, and so I thought we'd bring them back around later. It didn't really happen. I'll go into that here in a little bit. But what actually happened was he started bringing up things he knew that I had showed him before. I actually got on my computer and his computer, and I go to DuckDuckGo.com, and he went there, and I said type in blue-eyed Egyptians. But what he did was he went to just Google and pulled that up, and instead of clicking on images, he put in blue-eyed Egyptians images and then pulled it up, so it gets a different sort than it would from total. And Google has got this problem that they do with things quite often, and they show more ambiguous things and not as much. And DuckDuckGo shows something that's a lot more clarified. I'll be able to show that to you in just a second. But he landed on this site right here, and so he's, just blue-eyed Egyptians. And I said, you don't have to type in early or pre-dynastic or anything. It'll end up showing all that I need to show you. And so he went to it. But inside of here shows enough, but not the full scope of it. For you can see all these little pictures here that it shows. And it does show a local right now, which is a mixed person, and somebody took a picture of him and he has blue eyes. And that's fantastic. And you also see some Coptic people here, and one of them has blue eyes and one of them has blonde hair. But there's another one that's real dark. So what's all that about? You see all these different pictures and depictions here going across, but what he's clicked is this first one that's blue highlighted because it's over here to the right. And who that is, which you can just barely see his eye, that's the seated scribe. So I started talking about him. And so, I kind of had this idea of where we needed to go with the conversation, and I came on finally to talk to him about it, and he kind of took over the conversation, but he knew some things that I had showed him before, and he wanted to show that, so that was fine. We can eventually get back to it, or even do it another time, for we really need to clarify these Egyptians. And so he said this blue-eyed Egyptian stuff. You can look on this, on Chief X's site. It's a recent one here. It's, are black Africans new? Did they migrate out of Africa? And it's because he shows Asalar Man there that they're fairly new, and they never migrated out of Africa. But at the very end of it, you'll see somebody come on after I talk and say all these other things about me and how that's no different than afrocentrics, which are lies, which he agrees with, but then he says, so it's European lies. And it gets to be a strange thing. I'll get to there here in a minute, because I feel like it just went south about 4 minutes after this, maybe a little longer. And it's whenever he got on a new guy that looks kind of like Nature Boy, and he says he's admixed and all these things, but he's all touting mushrooms. And then he starts going into Buddha, and Buddha was enlightened not up under a Bodhi tree, but up under a mushroom, and so on and everything. And I go, I have an agreement to that, but did you know that Buddha that you're talking about was actually a red-headed man? Well, I say that after he turns around and tries to say that he's a black person. Or then after I clarified, he bounces back with this, oh, he's everything and all these other things and stuff, and he goes on this mushroom eye thing, which when Mushroom Man shows up, it all goes off in left field. Then there's another guy, but you'll find Mushroom Man agrees with me when I later say a few things, but it comes across as dissected, and of course it's actually instantly built a wall from the 7 or 8 things that I wanted to show. I could go on for hours, and you know it. But 7 or 8 things that I wanted to show in a succession with certain things said, so it gives a presentation, but it kept getting knocked from the first idea of Asalar Man and talking about all of humanity. And then we'll go into Egypt to instantly not going to do the humanity thing, check out the blue-eyed Egyptians. All right, let's just do Egypt. So here we were looking at them, and so it shows these earliest statues, and all these are blue-eyed people from there. And there's a male that's darker, which is red ochre, which is just like the scribe over here with blue eyes, and he has blue eyes too. This is Nofret and Rahotep. And Nofret is a woman drawn pale, and these are the first dynasties right around Egypt and so on. And so it shows you pale women and men, but they're of course Caucasians. You can easily tell the phenotype on all of these. And their edict, but I talked about their crystal blue eyes, and this is Maidi, he's the seated scribe here. I didn't get to go because we went off in left field again on the idea that you could see, if you went to DuckDuckGo, are here, but he pulls up one of these other pictures over here, and so we start talking about this, which shows Egyptians, Sumerians, and other people, including a Buddha statue with blue eyes, which is crazy because Mushroom Man comes on and then he starts telling you all these other things, but that's okay. And people in the comments started saying that it was Eurocentric, and I did not say that Buddha was ever from Europe. Europe was named from Europa, a Phoenician princess that got taken by a sacred white cow, which was secretly Zeus, over to the Minoans. And there's a mythology that goes on along with that, and I've got videos on it. But the Minoans were considered Europeans before it blew up. Irregardless, it's a European people. They were highly advanced, more so even than the Greeks and everything at the time, but that neither means there. But that's how Europe gets its name. I never claimed that Buddha was from Europe, but you see, whenever I show blue-eyed people around the world and in Egypt and in these places that herald the civilizations and were at least the nobility, I get this idea that I'm being Eurocentric. The guy tries to compare the two and put them on a scale with Negrocentric on one side of it and say that's about the same kind of thing. What's silly is, just like in Indiana Jones, you know, a bag about the size of something that's made of solid gold is not going to be the same weight, and here comes that ball rolling down a hill that's about to crush you. Well, we got taken off in left field again, but before I describe the whole thing and not show any pictures and everything about it or go into it more, let's talk about this and get past it. Here are some people blue-eyed that still exist in Egypt today. This little blue-green-eyed hazel girl here that's been taken, she goes around trying to sell postcards and stuff, by the way. I've seen at least a handful of pictures of this girl before because people make a note of her. She's real cute, and she's got a way of doing it, and she quite often sells postcards, by the way. But this is in modern times. You can still see it. And you can still see it in the Coptic and so on. And I talked to the other guy about that, and that there are still light-eyed people in Egypt today. So it's not been all drowned out, but it's been concentrated into more of people that have a darker eye, skin tone, and predominant hair. Now, we didn't get to go into hair at all, which would have been my next thing if I was doing the presentation, but we went into this and we went into other things. But you can go up to hair on Wiki and go down to curly, and they'll show you blonde scalps and wigs, so scalps directly off the mummy that were blonde haired. It's Caucasian hair, and it didn't change from natron or anything like that. But here's a picture from pre-dynastic, where they're using lapis lazuli, which comes from Sumeria and Edomite lands in the Zagros Mountains, way over there. So there were trades with them, and you can tell that the Sumerians used this quite a bit, and they used it in their own statues that are here. But that same effect is found in pre-dynastic Egypt. In fact, this is from one of the cultures in Nakata. Here's another culture of two golden statues. At first they said, well, it might have been the gods and stuff, but they found Ginger, the pre-dynastic Caucasian blonde-haired mummy that's part of the people that ended up making pre-dynastic Egypt and worn into it. They've still got his body in the British Museum. And they're all blue-eyed. Now, am I saying that all the Egyptians were blue-eyed? No. The nobility says clearly in a few places in there that we rule over the brown-haired people, the dark-haired people. Not dark-skinned, although they rule over the Nubians and stuff, and the dark-skinned Nubians. You look up viceroys of Kush, and you'll find out who was ruling the time of the Kushites and the ideas that go on there, and those people were highly admixed anyhow, and I don't want to get into that even with this here at all. But the presentation I was given was taken off in left field from being able to show even pre-dynastics that you see here, and Nofret and Rahotep, and there's a bunch of others. In fact, there's some 27 different ones that they have over there, and they're all the nobility statues because they're the only ones that had it built off of it. And these scribes, like the one over here at the right that you see, were somebody's uncle of the king at one time. And you go 2 generations down and you get second cousins and all this, but they're all from the same people. So one would have to discern that most of the scribes, nobility, and the people running the shit would have had blue eyes. Now, after that, we could have gone into hair, and the fact that this is a brown hair, so she's got hair that looks like the people that they're ruling over, or a good portion of them. But these nobility get a lot of going on too, and so even the natural Egyptians have a lot of lighter hair and blue eyes in them too. This is reflected in the DNA that they found from these mummies. People that are at least capable of having these blue eyes. One video Egyptologist 7 did show that these people had that SLC gene that was all about light skin and blue eyes. That some people have said come around the last ice age, and that everybody must be related to him because it's in a centralized area. But lo and behold, that person could have had a great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, and it go on from there, and we've talked about this before. Now, not that I was going to go on like this if I was on his show. I was going to try to throw things that were more concise, but I was going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and at 1, I got taken away into a total different discussion that's in the blue-eyed Egyptian, so we went with that. But I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, but before I could get to 2, or get him to turn around and go from DuckDuckGo to the other one so he can look at the one that I'm looking at, so we can say, you see that guy to the right or left, because what I'm actually doing is looking at my TV while I'm talking to him off the phone. Irregardless, there's like 27 of them. There's a group that are shown here, but then there's also hair. There's blonde hair here, and King Tut's grandparents, and so on. And redheads, which became an important view, or a topic, or so on going on here. But then from that picture, instead of talking about the things that I just talked about, we get taken here inside of 14 seconds, it looks like. So I go ahead and go with that, but I go, let's see if I can stay on base as much as I can. So let's talk about that, because here's another one of those crystal blue-eyed Egyptian statues, and you can see the phenotype right here. But that also, Sumerians had blue eyes, and it'd probably be easier to get you to believe that Sumerians had blue eyes than Egyptians by what you've been told all your life, regardless of archaeology and the truth that I'm showing you. But then oddly, there are bearded statues with blue eyes representing Viracocha and these people that brought civilization to the South Americans, and they're shown with blue eyes but also bearded. And the odd thing, odder than the blue eyes, is that they're not known, any of them, to have any facial hair whatsoever, but they make a representation that this is so. And when Cortez and those people showed up, they turned around and said that they were the Viracochas coming back. Here you are. People try to discount that all the time, say all kinds of things about it. But then Mushroom Man shows up here shortly and doesn't even allow me to take this any other way. But also, I don't want to take it to South America has a weird question mark over it. We're not talking about that. We're trying to talk about black people and their involvement with Egypt. Well, we can't get that. And instantly, I start looking like a Eurocentric because I'm saying blue eyes are in these places. No, I'm just showing you the truth. There are blue-eyed people in these places listed as the nobility, and Buddha's listed as one too. In fact, it says in his own edict, when he says what it takes to be a noble man, and he gives you like these over 30 things that it has to be, like number 21 or 27 is blue eyes. And instantly, oh God, you're Eurocentric. You're saying that white people were everywhere. And no. The people that Buddha went and talked to weren't white people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying who they say Buddha was. I never say Buddha was in from Europe or anything from that. They put that in there because we see that blue-eyed people in Europe nowadays. And let's see if we can put two and two together now. And with these other pictures, realize that just like the archaeology is shown in genetics, that these people used to be here. And that Europeans were from the Middle East. And Egypt has the same genetics as people that are in Europe now, i.e. King Tut shows up. Who's the guy that looks closest? It's some geeky looking, blonde haired guy from Sussex, England or something. He's a white dude. He kind of looks like the vampire kissing people's younger goofy brother. But people can't make the rationality that there were Caucasians all over the known world and only pushed to the edges where these people left at the time that history begins. China wasn't even in China at that time. Hopefully if you've studied any of this stuff, you've realized what I'm saying to you, that the centralized area of the whole Middle East was all Caucasian people. All of North Africa, always. Even Soikita says 60,000 years, and then he follows it up with, well, always. From if there was, here they are. And in Egypt, it was a response from somebody who was asking, when did white people show up in Egypt? I should show it to you now. I've got it in a recent video, but nah, let's just go on here. So I feel like I've been taken off in left field, and then now I'm showing all these connections though, which does do something cool, and with all Caucasian people, so you can realize that same. Well, it gets worse than that. There's also swastika symbols and so on that are associated with these people that end up going all around. There's even been swastikas found in Egypt, but lesser things are found there. They had different seasons and so on, so it left them with a little bit different, but it's only variations on a theme. So I get taken off in left field, and then I show up, there I am, and I don't care, and hopefully we take it back, and we do, to Himwenu. And he's the architect of the Great Pyramid. And this is something I was going to show back when I show the earliest Egyptians, because the statement was going to be at the end of all that, that there are no black people involved in earliest Egypt and pre-dynastic. They all appear to be like blue-eyed. And I asked him, what does this guy look like? And he's just flabbergasted. He's seen this before because I showed it to him before. I was giving him some fuel basically here for arguments in sway, if you will. But if you look at Himwenu here, you say that he looks like some European Greek type thing, right? So I try to take the idea back around again, and then so I say, all right, well, let's just go ahead and do this. Let's look up reserve heads. Let's look up reserve heads. So we look up reserve heads, and these are the reserve heads for nobility for the 3rd and 4th dynasties. So leading into the pyramids and up to the pyramids, and what do these people all look like? Now they try to pick out that pinker one that's in the top middle there, that's solo, and say that's a black guy. And what's hilarious is, no, that's a Caucasian woman. They've now figured out basically who all these people are with the nobility. And this is their extra head, kind of like the Nefertiti head was something as a model to go on that everybody agreed upon, basically, and they would use it, like Nefertiti's head, as the example to use off of. And so I asked Chief X, but I'm not loading Chief X up or anything, but I asked him, look at these people. Look at that guy on the right there in the black part area there, and you can see he looks like some futuristic guy from the year 3500. He looks like some weird Star Trek type thing. You can tell he's easy Caucasians, and I asked him, can you see why whenever the first people got into this deep, after seeing some blonde-haired, red-headed people here, and seeing blue-eyed crystal statues all over the place and stuff, and then these reserve heads and the phenotypes of all these people, and ginger, and the pre-dynastic blonde, and then looking at these reserve heads, how they might have thought that they had more of a Nordic appearance. He hesitated for a second, and he agreed, yeah, I see what you're saying. So I'm not saying, and of course he hadn't seen this reserve head yet. In our conversations, they always seem to go off in left field one way or another, but I kept trying to keep it on track. But conversations go that way, that's cool. But lo and behold, who the hell do these people look like? And there's not one or two, but there's dozens, and they figured out slowly but surely, well, this one's this one, this one, this one, that's that one. So these are his 3 kids and his daughter right here, and this is this, and this is that. And this is right before the dynasties leading up into Khufu and the people that built the pyramids. Khufu's granddaughter, which I was going to show next, is a redhead. I was going to do a whole video about it here recently, but I felt like I had choked about it too much, but I hadn't gone into that aspect, and it's another article and then a Quora question, which is always loaded, and put them together. But so even you now can see how these people that started everything off, if I told you that these people are Egyptians starting off the dynasties here, but they're really people migrated from Sumer, you'd look at ones, especially like this one right here and so on, and a few of these others, and say, oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah, real quick, rather than saying, these people look kind of Nordic. Well, if we were able to not go off in left field and then Mushroom Man show up, I would be able to relate to the idea that everybody that lived, and I tried once, everybody that lives over in Europe now used to be Proto-Indo-Europeans. They all lived in the Middle East at one time. Now there's some debate, and there's a lot of people that know and won't say on who was where at what time. So I've tried to show that with little clips and videos and stuff like that. They found that the Holy Land right there had blue-eyed people show up at 6400 BC. And everything changed about then and started going rapidly in a different direction. All this would seem like it went to nowhere if we had not found Catalhoyuk and a few other civilizations that already existed before, going back 8000 BC and so on. And then we find Göbekli Tepe breaking exactly at the barrier of the Ice Age, coming out of it, and the Younger Dryas event, and all of these things we talk about also that equate out to being, at 10,500 BC, and how they have Stonehenge type areas. There's a bunch of them. They're all carved up and cool. Doubling the timeline of when people thought that type of civilization was going on. And it's gonna get worse. Hopefully before my lifetime ends, we see that no, where did that come from? There's something else. What's up under that mound? What's up under that mound? They've already found like 11 of these places, and a couple of them predate Göbekli Tepe. And you can tell by the look of them, it's like, oh, they made it better and better and better. Next thing you know, they've got travertine and concrete floors. Yep, concrete. What you would legally fill under there. No, it's not exactly the same recipe, but it comes out the same thing. They made concrete floors. So all kinds of things they're finding out about it, but not to take away from it, let's go back to Egypt here. There's all these reserve heads, so no one in their right mind would try to say that any of these people are black. They might try to the top middle one, and that's the girl that's the sister of the people on the left of her. So we go on for a second here, but lo and behold, shows up Mahash Magumi, living in Arizona now. And nothing against this guy, man. If we weren't having the conversation we were having, in reality, I could have a hippie conversation, like I've done in some of my videos, and show him mushrooms and things that all come from that, Phrygian red caps, and all kinds of things from these people, these Caucasians, that had this all the way through. In fact, I'm going to do a Christmas video which does a relation to these red caps and those little elf people with the little caps and all that type of stuff. and a connection, because we're right near Christmas when I'm making this video. But mushroom guy shows up and he tries to say Buddha was black, because there's a few out of all the representations that show swirls on his head. And of course black people have turned around and said that's Bantu knots. Whenever you can find a blonde or redhead guy with curly hair that would have the same type of little twids all in them, I can show you that all day. And the statue's made out of gold, or gold plated. So let's get over that idea. Chief X finally comes back on after this fact and after I was on and relates something that I had heard, but it didn't come to mind because I'm trying to get over Mushroom Man and get back to the conversation. But lo and behold, those are supposed to be probably the ones that he's picking out, because he's seen the afrocentric thing onto it more than I have probably, and goes, that's snails. That was supposed to be snails. Which, if you look at that, that has a connection to sacred geometry, and Fibonacci sequences, and all of that concept idea, and the celestial mind that he has going on. What's on his mind? The stars. When he talks about all this, maybe it makes more of a connection. But I had to tell this guy and put a little bit of boot in him, because it's been known by people for a long time that Gautama Buddha was a redhead. In fact, I could probably show you now. Let's see if we can go to that real quick as a clarifier. I've got a video on it. And Robert Sepper's got a video on it too, where it talks about it and the people that said so, and it hooks up to those Tarim Basin monk Buddhist type looking people and stuff. I've got a video coming about that too, called When East Meets West. And it was actually when West goes all the way to the east to meet them. No. The West was all the way to the east. Oriental is what we're talking about, not Asian. That's all Caucasians in ancient times. It's been encroached upon somewhat, the Uyghurs that are there and so on, but now we're looking at blue-eyed Egyptians on DuckDuckGo. Isn't that amazing? And if we were to look, around and back across, and everyone, there's no fret with her blue eyes that are there. There's a blue-eyed kid that's still there. There's that blue-eyed statue that's still there. Hey, here's Nefertiti. She's got one blue-eyed left. The other one's missing. Look at the color of her skin, much lighter than his. Pale women and men. Oh, they throw a fit about it. They try to throw a fit about it. It's amazing. And they're willing to go with, they may have been admixed. What's amazing is we're not even willing to go there. Look at this. Look at these different ones that are here. Look at this guy that's here. Tell me what phenotype you see. This guy that's here. All of these blue-eyed Egyptians. But it's showing there's some of them there. Hey, like I said before, there's that picture of that same girl with them greenish hazel eyes. Yep. Hey, here's that pre-dynastic statue. Yep. Here's another one showing a blue eye that's in Nefertiti. But here's one of my videos on Queen Tai and how yew wood is actually paler than cardboard. And it may darken over time. And of course, all those things that were buried with them are supposed to go at that moment. It's not supposed to be, well, and 3,000 years ago after rot and darkening of wood, we're going to make an assumption. Here's one of those blue-eyed early pre-dynastic statues. But you can see by looking through this, and oh, here's that group of Sumerian statues that are here with the blue eyes that are on that. So we could go there if we wanted to. Hey, there's that watercolor version of Egyptologist 7's moniker right there. That's pretty cool. Did you know that's a representation of the Wadjet eye that they call about it? It's a thing that's got magic hooked up to it and everything, but Wadjet means blue. That's the blue eye. And it also hooks up through time with what people later end up making into this, which is the evil eye. What's that? Well, no, it's a ward. It's a ward off the evil eye. What wards off evil eyes? Blue-eyed people. And they go, nah, bullshit. So here's another person that's put it together and says, here's Egyptian statues, here's Sumerian statues, and so on. Here again are Nofret, Rahotep, Nofret, both ends of the spectrum. Nefertiti, 18th dynasty, but you see the 4th dynasty, 4th to 5th, copper. People have said that may be where copper comes from, actually, too, instead of the Kuprex Islands and stuff like that hooked up to it, but that's neither here nor there. And hey, and if just I say that and we find out that's wrong one day, that doesn't mean everything I'm showing you here is bullshit, does it? Blacks like to think along that line somehow. So you look at the phenotypes of these earliest Egyptians, they're showing her a blue eye again of Nefertiti that's here. Right there. Blue eyes, so it goes on from there. Hey, the Mandan Sioux were known to have had light hair and blue eyes. This is a drawing done from in person of them. Isn't that amazing? Well, you can find a lot of redheads too, and here's Ramses, he's a redhead, and everybody talks about E1B1, and they don't even know that they've figured that out, debunked it a long time ago, and it's not this exact same that the sub-Saharans have. Although there is one place that if you get your DNA done, if you ever show up E1B at all, they turn around and say, you might be related to Ramses. And they've got black people thinking that West Sub-Saharans knew that Egypt existed, which is not true. See, one of the things that easily gets put as a wall up in front of the afrocentric idea that they come from the West Sub-Saharans, they were pre-Neolithic at the time. Looking at Asillar Man, you can see how long does it take for Caucasians, in comparison, to come out of pre-Neolithic into lithic? Well, it's a range about 40,000 years. Well, somebody yanked them a lot more than 40,000 years at that admixing event, and they come up from that and try to become a lithic people, actually. And how far off are they from possibly making their own Egypt or something like it, or something else or whatever off of it? And the edict used to be 40,000 years. Now, it's just something that can be assumed, and nobody can put two and two together and really say that this is an exact quotient, because that's never going to happen, because there's not a sub-Saharan that's admixed with a Caucasian that isn't being benefited or shown off by Caucasians. And they're learning a lot of other things from Caucasians. Hey, see this one right over here with the little glowing eyes just out the left from that blue and white eyeball, that one with the glowing eyes? It's a statue there. It's on this level right here. They found a lot of the statues. It's on this level right here, right over here. They found a lot of these statues. They glow in the dark with actinic lighting whenever you put it on them, because Egyptian blue has a phosphorescent thing. They did that to a few of the mummies too, and so on, and they showed up in their eyes and a few things, and showing that they used the Egyptian blue. So enough about that. So here we are back here, and I don't have but like 2 minutes to try to get the whole thing in, the rest of it. It's sad. Yeah, I tried to hold the phone up whenever I was doing this, and walking around and doing two things at once, and grabbing a comb in between and trying to aim the phone away from me. I showed one of my guitars, but it seems to be looking at my nose all the time, and this, that, and the other. I'm sitting on the bed at one point, and I go back in the other room at one point. Anyhow, to get to this other part here, and of course the guy's all extremely namaste about everything. That's fantastic. I'm not getting too much flack really from the people over here on the chat board, except for the fact that there's one in there that says that I'm a pseudo, and that because I said Buddha was a Caucasian, that all of a sudden meant I'm Eurocentric, which again was the stupidest statement in the whole thing, pretty much, because I never said Buddha was from Europe. It's your mind that puts that there rather than what was there at the time versus what our current demographic is. Then I said all the demographics in these areas have changed a lot, and everybody knows it, and then they agreed on that. What they won't agree on what they've already shown, and I've shown them, and I could have gone way off into it instead of going out in left field, but I went out in left field anyhow. I feel okay about it. I really do. We're going to end this one right here, because we're fixing to go to the point that this other guy comes on saying some things and tries to make an equation and ask what black people can claim. It'll be in your top left-hand corner right here. I'll see you there. Peace.